Why is Switzerland one of the wealthiest nations, while countries like Haiti or Chad struggle with poverty? What factors determine whether a country becomes rich or poor? This question has fascinated economists, historians, and policymakers for centuries. Today, we'll explore why are some countries rich and others poor, diving into the complex web of history, geography, governance, and global economics that shapes the fortunes of nations. Geography plays a significant role in shaping the economic fortunes of nations, from access to waterways and fertile land to the abundance of natural resources. The physical environment influences trade, agriculture, and industrial development. However, geography is not destiny. How nations utilize these advantages often determines their success or struggles. Access to waterways and trade. Countries with coastlines or navigable rivers have historically had a significant advantage in economic development. Waterways provide cheap and efficient transportation for goods, enabling trade and commerce. For example, European nations like the Netherlands and the United Kingdom flourished as maritime powers, leveraging their access to seas and rivers to dominate global trade. In contrast, landlocked countries like Bolivia and Chad face higher transportation costs and limited access to international markets, which restrict economic growth. This disparity highlights the importance of geography in shaping connectivity and opportunities. Fertile land and climate. Agriculture is another area where geography influences wealth. Nations with fertile land and temperate climates, such as the United States and much of Western Europe, have been able to establish strong agricultural sectors. The US Midwest, often called the breadbasket of the world, produces vast amounts of grain and other crops, fueling both domestic consumption and exports. Meanwhile, arid regions like sub-Saharan Africa often struggle with limited rainfall, poor soil quality, and frequent droughts, making agriculture less reliable and increasing dependency on food imports. The paradox of natural resources. Natural resources like oil, gas, and minerals can provide immense wealth, but they can also lead to significant challenges, a phenomenon known as the resource curse. Countries like Norway have successfully managed their resources, using oil revenues to fund public services, invest in infrastructure, and build a sovereign wealth fund for future generations. In contrast, nations like Venezuela have struggled with overdependence on oil, leading to economic instability when prices drop. The resource curse often arises when governments fail to diversify their economies or use resource wealth to foster inclusive development. In some cases, resource wealth has fueled corruption and conflict, as seen in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where valuable minerals like cobalt and diamonds have sparked violence and exploitation instead of prosperity. Geographical isolation. Geographical isolation can also hinder development. Nations located far from major economic hubs often face challenges in integrating into global trade networks. For example, Pacific Island nations like Tuvalu and Kiribati suffer from high shipping costs and limited access to international markets. Similarly, mountainous regions like Afghanistan are not only physically isolated but also face difficulties in building infrastructure, further limiting economic potential. Beyond geography. While geography provides opportunities or constraints, it does not dictate outcomes. Countries like Singapore, with few natural resources, have built thriving economies by focusing on trade, education, and innovation. This shows that while geography sets the stage, human decisions and policies determine how a nation performs on the global economic stage. Understanding the role of geography is critical, but as we'll see, historical and political factors also play a significant part in why some countries thrive while others struggle. History has profoundly shaped the economic trajectories of nations, with colonization leaving a lasting impact. During the colonial era, European powers extracted vast wealth from Africa, Asia and the Americas, fueling their own economies while leaving colonies impoverished. Resources like gold, silver and labour were exploited, destroying local industries and creating deep economic disparities that persist today. One major consequence of colonization was the creation of artificial borders, particularly in Africa. Colonial powers drew boundaries without considering cultural or ethnic divisions, leading to post-independence conflicts and political instability. Countries like Nigeria have struggled with these inherited divisions despite their resource wealth. Debt burdens also weigh heavily on many former colonies. Nations in Africa and Latin America inherited massive debts or took loans to rebuild after independence, limiting their ability to invest in infrastructure and education. However, not all post-colonial nations share the same fate. South Korea, despite a challenging colonial past, invested in education and industrialization to become a global economic leader. Similarly, Singapore leveraged its strategic location and stable governance to thrive. While colonization has shaped many disparities, overcoming this legacy requires strong governance, global cooperation, and equitable policies, a theme we'll explore further in the next sections. The quality of governance and institutions plays a critical role in determining whether a country thrives or struggles economically. Strong, stable governments and well-functioning institutions create an environment where businesses can grow, people can prosper, and wealth can be distributed more equitably. Conversely, corruption and weak governance can cripple development, no matter how favourable other conditions might be. Inclusive institutions, those that provide equal opportunities and enforce fair rules, are vital for sustained economic growth. For example, Singapore, once a struggling post-colonial city-state, transformed into an economic powerhouse by building strong institutions, promoting transparency, and investing in education and infrastructure. Stable property rights and efficient legal systems encouraged entrepreneurship and foreign investment, fueling its rapid development. In contrast, countries with extractive institutions, where elites monopolize resources and power, often face stagnation and inequality. Zimbabwe, rich in natural resources, has struggled economically due to corruption, political instability, and mismanagement. Poor governance has led to hyperinflation, unemployment, and an exodus of skilled workers, stifling the country's potential. Corruption is another significant barrier. In countries where bribery and embezzlement are rampant, resources are often diverted from essential services like healthcare and education. This undermines trust in government and discourages foreign investment. For example, Nigeria's oil wealth has often been mismanaged, with billions lost to corruption, leaving much of the population in poverty despite vast natural resources. Effective governance doesn't just ensure fair resource allocation, it also promotes innovation, infrastructure development, and education. Countries like Rwanda, through strong leadership and anti-corruption measures, have made significant progress despite a troubled history. Ultimately, governance is the foundation on which economies are built. Nations with accountable leaders and fair institutions are better equipped to manage challenges, attract investment, and ensure prosperity for their citizens. In the next sections, we'll explore how global trade and human capital further shape these outcomes. Global trade and economic systems play a crucial role in determining the wealth of nations. Countries that integrate successfully into global markets often experience faster growth and development, while those isolated from these systems often struggle. However, trade and globalization can also exacerbate inequality, creating winners and losers on both national and global scales. Nations like Germany have thrived by building strong manufacturing and export economies. Germany's integration into global trade networks, combined with advanced infrastructure and innovation, has made it one of the largest exporters in the world. Similarly, countries like South Korea and Vietnam leveraged export-driven growth to transform their economies, lifting millions out of poverty in just a few decades. On the other hand, countries like North Korea, isolated from international trade, remain economically stagnant. Without access to global markets, they struggle to attract investment, innovate, or participate in the benefits of economic exchange. This isolation highlights the importance of open trade policies for growth. However, globalization has its downsides. Many developing countries find themselves locked into exploitative roles in global supply chains, exporting raw materials while importing high-value goods. This imbalance often traps them in a cycle of dependency. For example, many African nations export minerals and agricultural products but lack the infrastructure or capital to develop manufacturing industries, limiting their ability to add value and create wealth. The role of international organizations like the IMF and World Bank is also significant. While they provide loans and aid to struggling nations, these often come with conditions that can stifle long-term growth, such as austerity measures. Trade agreements, too, can be a double-edged sword, opening markets for some while disadvantaging others. Finally, wealthier nations often dominate global trade systems, setting rules that benefit their interests. This creates a playing field where developed nations thrive while developing ones struggle to compete. Bridging this gap requires fairer trade policies, targeted investment, and empowering poorer nations to move up the economic value chain. Global trade is a powerful engine for growth, but its benefits are not evenly distributed. Balancing globalization with local development and equity is essential to reduce economic disparities. In the next section, we'll explore how education and human capital are critical to achieving this balance. At the heart of a nation's wealth lies its people. Education, innovation, and the development of human capital are the driving forces behind economic success. Nations that prioritize these factors often experience sustainable growth and prosperity, while those that neglect them struggle to compete in a rapidly evolving global economy. Countries like Finland and Singapore have demonstrated how investments in education can transform economies. Finland's world-renowned education system emphasizes critical thinking and creativity, fostering a highly skilled workforce that drives innovation. Similarly, Singapore's focus on STEM education and vocational training has produced a tech-savvy population that attracts global companies and fuels its high-tech economy. Innovation is another key factor. Nations with thriving research and development sectors such as Japan and the United States often lead in technology and industry. These advancements create high-value industries, generate jobs, and attract investment. Conversely, countries with low literacy rates or limited access to higher education, such as Niger or Somalia, face significant barriers to growth as they struggle to build the skilled workforce necessary for development. Brain drain, the emigration of educated and skilled workers, is another challenge for many developing nations. For instance, many African countries invest in education only to see their best talent move to wealthier nations for better opportunities. Addressing this issue requires creating incentives for professionals to stay and contribute to their home economies. Technology and entrepreneurship are also critical. Countries like India, with its booming tech industry, have shown how fostering startups and innovation hubs can create new economic opportunities. Programs that encourage entrepreneurship and digital literacy can empower individuals and communities to drive local development. Ultimately, investing in human capital through education, healthcare, and innovation ensures a nation can adapt to challenges and seize opportunities in a rapidly changing world. Without these investments, even resource-rich countries may struggle to achieve long-term prosperity. The question of why some countries are rich while others are poor doesn't have a simple answer. It's a complex interplay of geography, history, governance, global trade, and human capital. But understanding these factors helps us see where progress can be made and how inequality can be addressed. What do you think is the most important factor in shaping a nation's wealth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more fascinating discussions about the world we live in. Let's keep learning and growing together.